One of the key factors of the Viking warrior has got to be their round shield, with painted designs of patterns or beasts imprinted upon them, and of course they did play a massive part in Viking era warfare. Join me today as we dive deeper into the Viking era round shield and uncover some of its secrets in this episode of the Viking Saga.
Just some bigger of the waves are skidding, barren summits to the verdant plains. Each horizon is a new beginning, rise and reign. Far from the fjords and the ice-cold turrets, raven soar over new frontiers. Songs and sagas of the fated turban, shields and spears.
Now, the round shield was not a distinctly Viking era invention. In fact, we can go all the way back to the ancient Greeks and look at the aspis, which is the hoplite shield, and also some circular Roman shields, just to name a couple. Though perhaps the Viking shield was not the first of its kind, it does have some different things that make it unique. So let's delve into those. Now, before we get too deep into this, I would like to just discuss something about the name. To most people, it is just referred to as the Viking shield. However, this shield was not only in use by the Vikings or the Norse, and the Saxons also had a very similar centre-gripped round shield. I myself tend to refer to the shield as the Viking era shield, as it was the shield being used during the Viking era. However, I know some people like to use the word skjolder, Shediversity comes to mind, which just simply means shield in Old Norse. For the purposes of this video, I'm just going to refer to it as Viking shield or Viking era shield just because it's probably easier for most people to understand, but you yourself might prefer to use the word skjolder for whatever your reasons. With that out of the way, let's get to the bottom of how these shields were made. Now, unlike today, back in the Viking era, they obviously couldn't go to a hardware store and pick up sheets of plywood, nor would it actually be as effective as what the Vikings did. These shields were made of planks, usually 8 or 9, out of linden wood. Now, linden wood is possibly not the only wood that they would have used, but it was ideal, as these shields spanned from about 90 to 75 centimetres, and having a heavy wood such as oak in a shield that large would be very impractical for how manoeuvrable they wanted the shields to be. It is thought by many experts that these shields are actually made specifically for the wielder, size-wise, and that's why we see such a large gap in the size of the shield, as so a taller person would have a larger shield and a smaller person would have a smaller shield. Now, these 8 or 9 strips of linden wood would be laid out and glued together with hide glue. Then they'd be cut into shape, and in this case, obviously a circle. An iron boss would be attached to the centre of the shield, providing protection for the hand. However, note that the grain of the wood is all going in the same direction, the direction of the planks. This may make you think that these shields were very weak. However, these shields were designed this way, and some archaeological finds actually have shown that they deliberately thinned the shield at the edge. This has everything to do with fighting style. The Norse actually did this to make it easier for enemy weapons to get stuck in the shield, and almost make the shield a weapon for a weapon. If your sword or axe got stuck in the opponent's shield, it would be a massive disadvantage to you in the fight, as it actually gives your opponent control of your weapon arm until the weapon breaks free. With having the grain of the wood all facing one direction, it gave the wielder a choice on how much he or she wanted the weapon to bite, if at all. Obviously, if the grain is angled towards the strike, the weapon will go deeper into the wood, whereas if the grain is across from the strike, it will not go as deep. Right, now the most simple of shields would just be strips of wood glued together with a rawhide rim around the edge, with the boss attached in the centre. However, other shields were coated in linen, such as this one here, and others, or the high-end shields, would be coated completely in rawhide. Now, invariably we see really epic patterns or designs imprinted on the shields, though unfortunately we don't know whether it would be each clan had this specific colour and blazon on it, or whether it was up to the individual. What we do know, however, is the paints available to a Norse warrior at this time. Archaeologists in Denmark have actually put together a chart that shows the paint colours that they had access to. They consist of lead white, yellow, ochre, orange, red, iron oxide red, brown, green, blue, black, and sort of a couple greys. On my shield, I've decided to paint Hati and Skoll, devouring the sun, which was said to happen during Ragnarok. Let's now turn our focus onto the inside of the shield. Now, this type of shield is called a centre grip shield, which just frankly means that it's gripped from the centre. Now my grip here is not particularly fancy, however it does fit some archaeological finds. Others were a bit more shaped, however this is still perfectly practical. There are some shields that even are shown to have bracer strips that go on either side here to provide strength for the planks which are going that way. Now it's also incredibly likely that some of these shields had slings attached to them, as many art depictions of the time showed warriors wielding dreaded Danax with the shield actually slung on their back. Now you may notice a few things about my shield, for instance the writing on the top which reads Fenrir Howls in Old Norse, but also the nails are stapled back over. This was actually done historically, we don't necessarily know why, but it possibly was easier than just sawing the nails off, and also provided 2 points of attachment for the nail and the wood, which probably made it overall a stronger connection. Now I can also see that my rim here is leather, which has been nailed to the shield. This could have happened historically, however most of them actually were stitched. And also there are some finds, I believe one find that actually has a surviving metal rim. However, this would have been very uncommon, as mentioned earlier, as invariably the shields were designed to have weapons bite into them. Now let's talk a little bit about how these shields would be used with different weapons. Right, so what's great about this type of shield is that it allows for great movability. This type of shield, unlike the Greek aspis which I have behind me, is not exactly meant to be held close to the body. It is more meant to be held out and moved around. With a shield that's gripped by the centre, it allows for very good movability and you can spin the shield around and move it. It does also have some weaknesses, which is it's easier for an enemy weapon to shift the shield without you wanting it to. So here I have a Viking 5-pronged sword, which there will be a video about this as well. And what is really good about this type of shield is that it allows me, for one, it's circular, so I don't have to bypass the square shield, so I can cut very close to the shield, but also allows me to, for instance, strike from the other side by rotating the shield round and me sort of getting into the weaker side of the opponent. So I believe that this shield would be held out a lot more like this, as opposed to hugging close. In shield walls perhaps it's different, but in sort of individual combat I think it makes a lot more sense to have your shield out. For one, it means that your defense is closer to your enemy, which gives you more time to react. For instance, if a weapon is coming down to my feet, I either have the choice of lifting my leg or I can lower the shield and counterattack. Whereas if my shield is up close, I really either have to completely overexpose myself, which obviously you don't want to do, or I just have to hope that me lifting my leg is enough. Also, instead of just attacking like this, I think it's also quite likely that you would move the shield in with the attack, because again that then covers your attacking arm. As you can see, my stab is still sheltered from the shield, so my arm isn't exposed as my shield's moving with the sword arm. Obviously there would be exceptions to the rule, such as if I'm trying to attack and defend at the same time, but overall in movies and stuff like that, when you see they do this big swing and they move the shield out the way, that would never really happen historically, as there's no benefit that you get from moving your main source of defense away from the strike when you can work with the shield to cover your arm and you can rotate it and stuff like that. Now, as mentioned earlier, of course, these shields were invariably meant for enemy weapons to bite, so you could almost try to, if a blow is coming from the side, punch into the weapon to get it stuck and then yank it aside. Now, one thing that is quite interesting with this type of sword, which we will get onto more specifically in the video dedicated to Viking swords, is that you can see that the point is quite rounded, or it's not particularly sharp, which would indicate that the sword is not meant for stabbing but slashing. Now, I personally find this quite interesting, as the sort of best armour in this time is mail, which you can't really cut through, so your only hope of bypassing it is being able to pop a rivet. But that would indicate as well that with the shield is that the weapons are a lot more used for slashing as opposed to stabbing. Now obviously this still has a point and you could still stab with it, but it's designed to be slashed with. Now as of this time I do not actually own any bearded axes or a Dane axe, however I am getting a Dane axe very soon and will hopefully be doing a video on that. With Dane axes, it's a two-handed weapon, which would mean that actually your shield is slung on your back. And in shield walls, it's also possible that the Dane axes would be wielded behind the shield wall. But you can see that this shield can be used in different ways. It can be slung on the back. This one doesn't yet have a sling, but it can be used on the back for a two-handed weapon. And of course, it's also more usefully used on the front. Now you can also not only use the shield as a weapon to bite enemy weapons, but of course you can also use it to punch or smack people. So you could, for instance, come in with a fake blow and then actually whip around with a shield bite, and then using that whip round and come over. There's lots of different ways that the shield can be used, and obviously it's a very versatile shield used for very quick, fast combat. This reproduction I've made here is too heavy for historical ones, which is unfortunate. I want to probably make a thinner one. This is made of plywood, but I've carved strips in it to give the effect of planks. But it being plywood, it makes it a lot heavier, so it makes it a lot more fatiguing to hold it out, and also slower, evidently, to move. So this shield does have a lot of possibilities of how it's used. You could angle it out more, angle it in more, tip it out, tip it in. It is really versatile, and that's why I personally am a massive fan of this type of shield. And with my Greek shield, you can see that it hugs a lot closer to my body. It's designed to fight in phalanxes as opposed to Viking shields which were designed to fight in shield walls, but also one-on-one combat. So you can see that with this shield, I can't get nearly as much versatility from it, but where this has a strength over the Viking era shield is that if I hit this, it's not going to be as easily maneuvered as my entire arm is supporting it. I hope you understand a little bit more about the Viking era round shield, and we'll see you next time.
Sail the sway of the crimson rail of blood and glory in the fighting fields. Shields are shattered and splintered, timbers iron and steel. Fires are rising and the bells are ringing.